Hello, everybody. It's Dave Neal, stand-up comic and host of Bachelor Nation News. We have an update to this tagging of the wrong person that happened on the Bachelor, I believe, Instagram page. They messed up, and now the ladies respond. First, we had Jen respond, and now Leia speaks as well. I'm going to share their TikToks and provide a little bit more commentary over what the heck could have gone down here, and is it a big deal or not? Well, the thing we all shouldn't do is dismiss the idea of someone being tagged. It's not just getting somebody's name wrong. It was like, the idea that there are so few Asian contestants on The Bachelor that they don't even know who to tag. And is it because of sinister motivations? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And Leia here will give some grace. Let's go to Jen first, and then we'll share Leia, because Jen posted this 4 days ago. We already shared this on Bachelor Rush Hour, our hit podcast featured in Time Magazine. So if you want all of the up-to-date content, make sure to go over to Bachelor Rush Hour. But I'm going to share what their responses are, and then we will share a little bit more info from several different studies, one of which was posted by BigThink.com and one by The Guardian. Why do people of other races look alike? Now, is this true? Well, it's all based on perspective. It's not all white people think that all black people look alike. It's that black people might think that white people look alike, including in this article, someone who said they didn't even get the movie The Departed because they couldn't tell the difference between Matt Damon and Leonardo DiCaprio. And anyway, you might think that's ridiculous, but, everyone's got a different set of eyes and lenses that we see life through. Now, the issue that I think we'll address here is, well, if The Bachelor show had a little bit more diversity, maybe they wouldn't run into some of these problems. Either way, here's Jen. She said, this is why Asian representation on TV is so important. The lack of exposure directly correlates to the ignorance. I'm not saying everyone is guilty of cultural ignorance, but it is disheartening to see how many news articles about me have used pictures of other Asian women who clearly do not look like me. Let's continue to take accountability, learn from others, and lead with love always. Hey, I already love it. Let's listen.
I get mixed up for different Asian women all the time. How do I feel about it? Disappointed, but not surprised. The worst mix-up that I've had, though, is when I used to work in an ICU and this nurse could never figure out my name, and we worked together for about a year. And then a new nurse came in and she was Asian, and then she started calling me by that new nurse's name. And I'm like, you've known me for a year and you still can't tell me apart from the new girl? And I want to say, like, oh, it's an innocent mistake, but it's definitely just happened way too often in my life. I won't lie to you and say sometimes I do get blondes mixed up from each other or brunettes mixed up from each other. But let's be honest here, the actual issue is that people can't tell Asians apart. Now, is that because people are racist, because people are ignorant, because people don't care? Tough to tell. It's tough to say. I'm not going to come out and say that everybody is culturally ignorant, but there are people that are like that have actually admitted that to me. I've also had people come up to me and say, you're the first Asian person I've ever seen.
That's ridiculous.
It's a tough topic to talk about, but I think that if we just took the time to really look and understand and observe and learn about each other, it wouldn't be hard to not mix me up with somebody else. The issue at hand is not that you can't tell me apart from different Asians. It's the fact that you don't care. You don't take the time out of your day to notice the differences.
And that's ignorance, right? That's not necessarily racism. It's not a hatred for a group of people. It's lazy, but a lot of laziness in certain respects can come from an ignorance. Being like, take the time to look people in the eyes and notice who they are as individuals, and maybe then you won't clump everyone up together. But again, it also is kind of genetic, which we'll get into in a second, and also environmental. So here now we have, hold on, we just went from, now let's go back to Leia. She said, so Bachelor Nation is making headlines, but for some of the wrong reasons. Here's what she had to say.
Bachelor Nation is making headlines, but for some of the wrong reasons. Reasons in question.
And of course, she posted there, maybe if producers had cast any Asian leads over the past 20 years, they would be able to tell them apart. This was from Bachelor Rabbit Hole, another account that has blocked me. So I'm not making many friends today.
But I do think it's important to extend grace. Honest mistakes do happen, and at the end of the day, we're all human. But I think this is part of a much larger conversation to be had, and that I would like to give my voice to.
Please.
Until we have a world stage and a media platform that is representative of the world we come from and the communities that make it up, I think we will always have a ways to go. Representation is everything. It was everything to me. I don't think I started believing in myself until I started seeing women like me doing the damn thing. It is so important for people to feel seen, heard, identified with. I think historically Asian Americans are vastly underrepresented in the media. And when we do show up, we don't take up space. We're the side character, the supporting character, the irrelevant Asian that gets voted off night one, or the diversity hire. I know it might seem like a silly little mistag for some people, but I feel like if we start to get to know our Asian Americans in media and we hear their names, their stories, their identities, then this wouldn't be a conversation.
Now, she's not wrong. Let's let her finish.
To all my Asian Americans, my minorities, my marginalized communities, you take up space.
Yes, ma'am.
You show up. And I love you.
Take up space, show up, and she loves you. What a great message from both ladies here to extend grace. When we say extend grace, it's one thing to have grace, it's to extend it to others. And that's to people that might not even want grace, right? That's to people that might have been the people that have done the mistagging of sorts. So why does it occur when people can't recognize other ethnicities' faces? And by the way, this is a hard topic for a lot of people to talk about because it sounds icky in today's politically correct world to have a conversation about racial bias, even maybe when it comes from a white guy, but this is who I am, this is all I know. Why does it occur? Many social scientists suggest it is a consequence of racial bias. Individuals, particularly those with more prejudiced racial attitudes, are not motivated to differentiate between members of other races. Consequently, the person would simply perceive the face as belonging to another race group instead of working to identify the nuances that indicate it is the face of an individual. But is racism or bias really the best explanation? So if in the most sinister way of looking at it, it could be someone who has racial bias, which again, you could call a form of racism. You could do that. Other cognitive scientists argue that a lack of perceptual expertise causes the other race effect. Okay, so we've talked about this on the podcast. It's called the other race effect. So it's not one race specifically, like whites do this or blacks. It's just the other race effect. It goes conversely with different races. Individuals with little visual experience with other race individuals have not learned to recognize subtle facial nuances. In other words, it's not a lack of motivation, it's a lack of knowledge. I mean, you might have people that don't know the difference between what a typical what typical Japanese features would be versus Vietnamese. And you could say the same for someone who may have been French Canadian versus Scandinavian, you know what I mean? So there are different features. I'm trying to show this on different sides here. There are different features across Caucasian, Asian, African, in other sort of ethnic backgrounds that differentiate people, and yet if you don't want to look for those or be educated or bump elbows with people that don't look like you, and maybe that's just because you live in a town or an area of the world where there aren't people that look different from you, then you might not recognize the differences between someone who would be okay, you get the point. The face inversion effect. Why would someone need experience with other race individuals to distinguish between their faces? After all, regardless of race, people generally have the same facial features: 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth. We even have shared facial expressions. Face recognition experts say that individuality lies in the configuration of those features. How far apart are your eyes? What's the slope of your nose in relation to the angle of your eyebrows? Are your cheekbones more or less dominant than your chin? Previous research has shown that we tend to trust faces with configurations similar to our own. Also, according to one explanation of the other race effect, an individual unfamiliar with another race processes the individual facial features of that race, but lacks the expertise to appreciate the relationships between those features. The most robust evidence in support of this is the face inversion effect. Over 300 studies have shown that we have difficulty recognizing upside down faces, even faces we're familiar with. This is the face inversion effect. And its most widespread explanation is that when presented upright, we process faces based on how the facial features are configured. However, our ability to do this is severely impaired when a face is flipped upside down. I feel like I could do that, right? Let me see if I could flip us upside down here. Let me see if I can rotate me. There we go. So, you have no idea who I am now. However, our ability to do this is severely impaired when a face is flipped upside down. The effect occurs regardless of race, but it is much smaller for other race faces compared to same race faces. Many cognitive scientists believe that this is evidence that we process other race faces configurally, just as we would an upside down face. I don't know. I get it, guys. It's a lot of science there. Oh, whoa, spin me around, baby. Either way, here's what The Guardian had to say. Why do people of other races all look alike? And this is someone, I'm not sure of their ethnic background, but they are non-white. They said, I saw The Departed twice, but I still don't understand it. The first time I watched it, I was utterly confused, and the plot still didn't make much sense on the second viewing. I know exactly why this is. It's because I find it very hard to tell the difference between Leo DiCaprio and Matt Damon. Now, if you ask me, the difference between Leo DiCaprio and Matt Damon, I mean, it's night and day. They're completely different. But I can understand that to somebody else, they might not be. Now, the way I see Leo DiCaprio and Matt Damon, could that be how a Bachelor intern or social media person sees Leia versus Jen? Maybe. Not going to fire them over it. Worth a conversation. Nevertheless, the other race effect is a well-established phenomenon that we've known about for nearly 100 years. To the uninitiated, all Asiatics look alike. To the uninitiated American, wrote Gustav Feingold in 1914. All Asiatics look alike, while to the Asiatics, all white men look alike. So this isn't new, worth discussing. And as mentioned by the ladies here on TikTok, part of it is a lack of representation. The more people that don't look like you that you see, the more you see of the people that don't look like you. We'll be back on Patreon at patreon.com/Dave Neal right after this. We'll be live at 7 p.m. East Coast, 6 p.m. Central, and whatever the hell time on West Coast, 4 p.m. for a pre-Bachelor live stream. And if you behave and show up and have fun, we'll do an after show live stream. Week 3 tonight, baby. We'll see you then.